right, well, hello, everyone. This is a little different than what we've done on the channel before. A little bit of a different scenery, different time of day as well. I'm coming at you not even in the evening, at nighttime. And this is not a video from the garden. This is a video from the dining room. So hopefully you all like it. Have a different audio setup as well, which I'm excited to have for the video, I guess you could say, trying to collect my thoughts and collect my words. By the way, this is just going to be a simple one take sort of type of video conversation because I like this sort of thing. I have a history of doing podcasts and these sorts of videos for a different channel that I have, or that I used to record things with. So we're just going to kind of roll, and I have my notes off here. So if you see me look in this direction, it's just because I'm looking at my points that I want to cover. But really what I want to talk about this video, and this might be a little bit longer of a one, so I suggest you grab some coffee or tea or seltzer water or whatever you like to drink and listen, or maybe you even kind of listen to this in podcast form, put the phone in the pocket, Bluetooth earbuds are in, and you're multitasking, all good. But wanted to talk just about my gardening journey. And I think we all have a little bit of a journey in how we came to gardening and growing things in our enthusiastic infatuation. There's some good words for you with planting things. You know, I think we all have our own journey. So I just want to talk about that and give you a little bit of a vision of why I started Dickson Claim, what I want Dickson Claim to be, what my motivation is, and just to I don't know, kind of share a little bit about my story so you all know me better when you're seeing me out there getting my hands dirty in upcoming videos. So really wanted to just talk about, to start off the conversation, where my interest in the outdoors and nature kind of came from. I grew up not in the country by any means. Grew up in the suburbs and just had friendships and people in my circle that liked hunting and liked being outdoors and liked hiking and liked biking and those sorts of things. And so, you know, when I was growing up as a kid, my friends just so happened to be doing those sorts of things. So I just kind of gravitated toward being outside. Now, that's not to say, I mean, I was super into like PlayStation 2, you know, late nights playing Super Smash Brothers and those sorts of things. That was definitely a big part of my childhood as well. But also a big part was like being outside, like running around and building forts with my friends. And gosh, like I can even remember way back when I was 6, 7 years old, maybe even younger, like we would dig holes out in the yard and build forts and stuff like that. So being outdoors has always been a part of who I am. Grew up fishing with my grandfather. He originally took me out fishing and kind of grew an affinity, I guess you could say, to that. Still have that interest to this day. Take my son out to fish a couple times a year. I can remember specifically, we had some friends that had a creek in front of their house, and we would go in the creek and like catch crawdads and do that sort of thing. So again, like I've always just kind of been drawn toward the outdoors in some form or fashion. And as I got older, I never really pursued gardening, you know, like kind of getting outside of, getting out of high school. And I didn't go to college, but kind of getting into the professional world. I wasn't really drawn as much to the outdoors. I wasn't really drawn as much to gardening and growing things, but I've always kind of had this interest of building and creating in some form or fashion. That's where the mic setup is coming from. That's where the camera setup is coming from. That's where a lot of my equipment that you're seeing now is coming from, is like previous endeavors, whether it was a podcast or books that I've written in the past on personal finance or creating music. So when I was 19 years old, I was recording music and gigging around town and doing shows around town. So I've always kind of had this interest in creating, and there's a really deep satisfaction that I get with creating something, working hard on something, especially if it's with my hands, is even better. And then seeing the thing that I built is really, really gratifying for me. And so I don't get a lot of that in my career, right? So I have a great career, love what I do. gravitated toward working in sales, again, ever since high school. And there's a long story to that. Maybe we'll get into that, maybe not, because we could probably talk for many hours about about just that topic and how I ended up doing the work that I'm doing. But there's not a lot of like building something and then seeing it. And so I think that I've gravitated toward these outlets of like building something, seeing it, building something, seeing it, because that's really, really gratifying. But yeah, so kind of meandering, and sorry, my thoughts, we're just having a conversation as if you're sitting here across the dining room table from me. But the love for the outdoors, I think, kind of stemmed from that, like partly building something and being able to see it, but also the older I get, the more I really pursue, unintentionally and sometimes intentionally, the like peaceful activities, right? So, my job is hectic, having children, having a dog, like all of these responsibilities, they're all good things, right? All those things are blessings, but they're hectic. And I think my brain and my personality and my soul loves peace and quiet and things that are methodical. And so these outlets of creation have been, almost go so far as to say life-saving, but maybe I would use those terms. And gardening's just been the perfect balance of that. When I'm outside working, sweating, getting a little bit of a workout, getting sunshine, digging, listening to a podcast, listening to music as I'm doing it, those sorts of activities really kind of put my mind where, sometimes my mind's like this, and it really just kind of flattens things out a little bit. So hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, I think that's kind of all in all how I got into gardening and building and creating. But kind of going back to talking about my childhood. So, I was doing lots of outdoor activities. And after that year of doing music, I actually took a trip across the country, slept in my car for 3 weeks, kind of did the van life thing for like a very, very short stint before it was really cool. And minus nixed the van. So I had an old Nissan Maxima, took my dog, road trip, slept in national parks, Yellowstone, Olympic, Badlands, did the hiking thing, like did the whole finding myself thing. Again, which was like another just outlet of like, hey, I haven't experienced, these sorts of mountains and this sort of ocean and, this sort of terrain. So I wanted to experience those things. And I did that. So yeah, I guess just a little bit of backstory about like more of my pursuit towards nature and those things. So I also got married really young. And as we started a family, my wife and I started a family, I realized that like I had this dream of owning a farm or a homestead, really. And I don't know where that came from. It probably just came from reading tons of articles and books like Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck and Through Painted Deserts by Donald Miller. Like just hearing these travel books, hearing these outdoor books, watching YouTube videos of people growing things and raising pigs and raising chickens and all of those things. So I started developing this dream of having a farm, right? And we would, we actually tried, we had about a half an acre at our old house, and we had some chickens, and that's a whole story that I can tell you guys another time. Thought we had a bunch of, hens that were going to lay eggs, turned out they were a bunch of roosters, and that was a whole adventure. But, I've tried pursuing this like grandiose dream, and I think you guys can probably resonate with this in some form or fashion of like having, the acreage and the cute little house and, all of the outbuildings and all those sorts of things. And for years and years, we've tried like fitting that into our life, looking for the right property, looking for the property that would check the boxes, wouldn't be too far away from responsibilities that we have, like my office and, my kids' school and all of that would fit the budget. And just ran into a lot of, stop signs, basically, as I really, truly, was trying to make that dream a reality. So, with this Dickson Claim thing, kind of skipping a few steps, this Dickson Claim thing really was a realization of like, hey, where we're at here in our current location, I'm on 0.25 acres in the suburbs. So nothing like magical that I could post some scenic vista on Instagram about, right? It's like a very normal place. And I want to coin this term, and I might make a t-shirt of it, because it's just really come to my head over and over again. But, I decided to start living my dreams where my feet were planted. And to me, what that means is like, hey, you're in this great spot. You have this amazing blessing of a home, and it's centrally located to all my office and kids' school, and like great neighborhood for a family. So why don't you just start living your dreams and doing the things that you're wanting to do with this outdoor gardening, farming, homestead desire that you have where you are, and see where it takes you. And so I was brainstorming what I wanted the project to be called one day, as I do with many other projects and have with other projects, and just decided on Dickson Claim. My last name is Dickson. I didn't want to call it like Dickson Homestead or Dickson Farm. That's when I'm going to actually get my land. I'll call it Dickson Farm. But Dickson Claim is like your land. You know what I mean? Like it's your stake in the earth. It's your place in the earth. And so that's what I decided to kind of call this project. And so yeah, but let's backtrack a little bit. So in my previous property, to talk really about my history of gardening and kind of where I'm at in terms of my level of expertise or really lack thereof, I've had gardens for, I say many years. I would probably say for the past 7 years. Started very simple, like I would say 12-foot by 6-foot plot in the backyard next to the chicken coop, and planted very, tomatoes, cucumbers, hot peppers, and that was kind of it. And learned just from trial. It wasn't like well researched at all. It was just like, hey, I want to start growing some things and try my hand at it. And I did. I can remember like digging in the back of the backyard in the middle of summertime, like planting all of these things at the wrong time in the heat of like July, way past when I should actually be getting things in the ground. But I've just learned from trial and error, really. I've never been super well researched up until more recently about horticulture and plants and growing things. And so, so fast forward, like there were a couple years at that house where I had just that plot and was gardening, but not really, like being super excited about it in the springtime, and then, not weeding ever, and not harvesting properly, not knowing anything about what pruning was. And my garden would just kind of go to waste when the heat of the summer came. Wouldn't even really water consistently, right? I like the idea of gardening, but not the actual keeping up with the garden. And so, did that for a couple years. Then we moved to this house, and this house didn't really have a great spot for a garden at the time. We had this little strip of land on the side of our house. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to dig up the turf. I'm going to shake all of it out. Like I'm going to do this all by hand. I'm going to shake out all the dirt, and we're going to turn it into a garden bed. And so I did that with half of the area, planted some plants, kept up with it a little bit better. And this was probably, 4 or 5 years ago. But never again, like very well researched, just like getting random plants, putting them in the ground, seeing what happened, having various levels of success. Like we'd have hot peppers for a while. We would have some tomatoes, but not really, because I didn't know how to prune them very well, and like whatever. So we were just doing the best we could. And so gradually I made that garden space, that little strip of land, a little bigger. And then I got a little bit more intentional with what I was planting. And I was like, hey, I kind of want to plant perennials and not just annuals. And I want to try some fruits out, not just vegetables. And so I put some blackberries in. And, you guys will see this strip exactly what I'm talking about. If you follow me on Instagram, I think it's at Dickson__ claim, or you've watched some previous YouTube videos, you've probably seen this land, and you will definitely see more of it coming up in the future, because it's about time for me to start getting some more things in the ground. But it's just been a slow progression. And again, like even the blackberries, I planted the blackberries, let them grow like crazy, didn't get blackberries for a couple years. And I learned about pruning techniques with those. And, now this year we're going to have blackberries, and, planted a couple pear trees, didn't really know about pruning, but worked on that. And then we had pears last year, so it's just kind of this slow progression of educating myself on the interest that I have, and just kind of following my, I hate to say following passion, but just following my interest and where it goes, and not making too big a deal out of it. And I think that's a learning lesson for us. Like I think that we gardeners, want to do everything perfectly, and we want to do it all right the first time. And the fact of the matter is that you don't have to. Most of the time gardening is for you, for nobody else. You're just trying to kind of figure it out, and so that's what I did. So most recently, with the onset of this Dickson Claim thing, I decided to take kind of our backyard and kill half of my lawn, mulch it, and plant native species, right? And this is kind of my first venture into planting things that didn't produce a fruit or a vegetable. And that's completely fresh and new for me. So, I have lots of flowers, lots of native grasses. I just have a whole series on YouTube that I published, a 3-part series about how I did all of these things, like how I killed the grass, how I planted or put the mulch down and planted the plants, and what my thought process was. I built some trellised arches, and that's going to have grapevines on it and all of that. So that's been kind of the latest muse. But again, it's just been kind of me following my interests and following my passions, and now I'm getting more intentional about it because I realize of the many things in this world that I love, this is certainly one of the ones that's high on the list. So yeah, that's kind of the story. Again, I just wanted you to know a little bit about me, and when you're seeing me do something incorrectly on a video, it's because I'm kind of freestyling as I go, and I know I'm going to make many more mistakes, but I'm hoping that these videos not only pique your interest in terms of seeing some cool plants, seeing some cool fruit. Like I've been there watching YouTube, like just kind of admiring the gardens and admiring the process, and having the videos on, whether I'm watching them or just listening to them as I'm doing the dishes or whatever, doing yard work. So hopefully it kind of does that for you. It's a source of entertainment, but also hopefully it's a source of inspiration where it's like, you don't have to do things perfectly. You can live your dreams where your feet are planted. You don't have to have the perfect situation. I know there's a ton of people out there that are dreaming of a farm and dreaming of a homestead and dreaming of acreage, and they haven't started yet because they're waiting for that perfect scenario. And so hopefully these videos and this content can serve as like a, hey, it's okay to do this sort of thing where you are now. And like, oh, by the way, it can look really, really cool. Like I'm really, really proud of the garden that I built this year. I'm really, really excited to be able to see the grapes grow. And it's crazy. Like it's been a month, I think, about that I've planted these things, and it's already looking like it's coming alive. The grapevines that I have on my trellises are already like almost all the way on the top of my trellis. Again, you'll see more content of that coming up. But yeah, so I'm going to be producing a lot of content like that, a lot of content like this, whether I'm inside talking or I'm outside talking about my process, about even like how-tos. I don't want to become like too much of a how-to sort of channel, but I'll produce how-tos about like how to keep slugs and bugs off your strawberries, and how to keep the birds away from your grapes, and which sort of plants should you plant and which sort of plants should you not plant in next to other things, and that sort of thing. But really, I've done the how-to thing. Again, I've written nonfiction books and all of that, and produced how-to content for personal finance before. I really want this to be more of like an artistic outlet though. Where I'm artfully kind of showing you guys what gardening can be as a source of entertainment, not always just, hey, here's how to do something, because I think there's a lot of content out there about that. So yeah, hopefully you found this intriguing, valuable. I'd ask if you want to follow along the journey. Number one, I have several videos, in particular, the whole 3-part series. That's like almost 2 hours of content, I believe, that's showing you how I did the native garden and how I planted everything. But if this sounds interesting to you, I'd love for you to subscribe. Love for you to comment as well, what you'd like to see, what you're excited to see. I'll also tell you this, and I commit that the audio and the video will be getting better as I save up money and as I continue to put out content, because I'm not totally pleased with the audio in my other videos. I'm recording with my phone on a tripod that I got off of Amazon. So we're starting somewhere, but yeah, thanks for spending some time with me on the other side of the dinner table this evening, and yeah, we'll talk to you very soon.